Let's dive right into this explainer. If you look at greeting cards or diaper commercials, fatherhood is all soft lighting and tender moments, right? But today, we're going to unpack a piece of writing that takes a completely different, honestly, almost brutal approach. The source text we're analyzing treats the psychological and physical journey of fatherhood not as some sentimental family drama, but literally like a gritty wildlife documentary. We're looking at an essay that frames the entire experience of becoming and being a dad as a dramatic biological arc. It's this silent transformation that reshapes a person entirely. It's a really compelling, uncompromising look at a universal experience, completely stripped of all its usual romanticism. Now, according to the source material, this transformation isn't some slow, gradual process. No, it happens in an instant. The author argues that the exact moment a baby cries in the delivery room, a man's former identity just instantly slams shut. In an absolute flash, you go from being a carefree, independent predator, moving through the world on your own terms, responsible only for yourself, to a beast of burden. And notice the deliberate language the author uses here. A beast of burden is an animal kept specifically for heavy labor, right? To carry the weight for others. So the source is immediately framing fatherhood as a sudden, total loss of independence. Section 1. The birth of the beast. Let's see how this text defines this very first stage of the life cycle. We usually think of a birth in terms of what's being added to a family, but the source frames the delivery room entirely around what the new father has to surrender. The author lists 3 specific things you instantly hand over: your former identity, your free time, and that meticulously maintained sleep schedule. Yeah, gone. There is absolutely no negotiation here. The text makes it incredibly clear that the toll is extracted immediately. It effectively erases the person you were just hours prior to make room for this brand new role. And that brings us to what might just be the most brutal thesis of the entire essay. The text argues that you become the family's financial shield and emotional punching bag, and absolutely no one is going to thank you for it. It's such a fascinating juxtaposition of roles, isn't it? As a shield, you're expected to be strong, deflecting all the harsh financial realities of the world away from your family. But simultaneously, you're the emotional punching bag, absorbing the stresses, the frustrations, and anxieties of the household. And the kicker? The source explicitly states that gratitude is just not part of the equation. It's simply your new biological function. Moving right along into our next section, the bear cub stumbles. Let's look at the immediate aftermath of this massive transition. To truly grasp this arc, the source maps out the human journey in these distinct, almost instinctual phases. We start at year 0 with that shocking delivery room transition, then we brace for the decades-long grind of the provider years, and eventually, inevitably, arrive at the quiet, empty nest. But right now, we're analyzing that chaotic beginning. In these early stages, the physical toll of severe sleep deprivation is paired with this really deep psychological shock. The author describes a literally paralyzing realization that hits the new father. Despite all the societal messaging telling us that parents just naturally know what to do, the source paints a picture of stark terror. You're handed this incredibly fragile life, and instead of immediate competence, you're hit with a daunting awareness of your own absolute ignorance. So the really crucial point here is the massive gap between what society expects and what the text says is actually happening. Rather than magically becoming the stoic, competent protector right out of the gate, the text likens the new father to a bear cub, clumsily failing its very first hunt. You're just stumbling around, making mistakes. It's a striking piece of imagery for sure. It strips away all the dignity we usually assign to adulthood and reduces the new father to a clumsy infant animal himself, desperately trying to figure out the basic mechanics of survival in a brand new, totally unforgiving environment. Next up, the relentless daily hunt. Now we're moving into the prime provider years. In this phase, the modern daily grind of employment isn't described in terms of career ambition or climbing the corporate ladder. Not at all. It's depicted as a relentless, repetitive hunt. You go to the daily job, which the author explicitly defines as treating your physical health for resources. Think about that for a second. You're slowly sacrificing your own body to generate the capital needed to survive, all to feed a nest that constantly, endlessly demands more. It frames modern economics as this primal, exhausting cycle of extraction. And the work doesn't just stop when the hunt is over. Back at the den, the father has to endlessly patrol his territory, which, in this case, is the family home. The source describes this as a constant state of vigilance, maintaining the structural integrity of the shelter and warding off external threats. If you've ever spent a Saturday fixing a leaky pipe or wrestling with a broken appliance instead of resting, you definitely know this feeling. The home isn't necessarily a place of relaxation for the beast of burden. It's really just another domain that requires constant management and physical labor to keep the family secure. So, what's the ultimate reward for this exhausting, decades-long physical and emotional effort? You'd expect a massive return on this immense investment of health and time, right? Well, the author notes that this dedication is frequently met with nothing more than dismissive eye rolls from teenage offspring. All that heavy lifting, all that sacrifice, and your reward is a door slammed in your face. It ties perfectly back to that earlier point about being the emotional punching bag. The grueling nature of the provider role is entirely invisible to the nest it actually supports. Finally, we reach our last section, the quiet fade-out. The author describes this transitional moment with a really stark, almost haunting realization. After decades of relentless noise, endless demands, daily hunting, and constant patrolling, the kids leave, and you are suddenly entirely obsolete. Your primary biological and societal function, the very thing that defined your existence since that first day in the delivery room, just vanishes overnight. The machinery of the family no longer requires the beast of burden to operate at full capacity. And the silence, according to the text, is as sudden as the initial shock of birth. So what exactly is left behind? The source paints a highly visceral picture of the aftermath here. What remains of the beast of burden is just a worn-out body with aching joints, a direct consequence of years of labor and trading your physical health for resources. In the environment, it's completely changed. Instead of a chaotic, demanding nest, the father is left sitting in a totally quiet, empty territory. The hunt is over, the patrolling is no longer necessary. The biological arc is effectively complete, leaving only the physical residue of the journey. The source leaves us right here, observing this quiet fade out. The father is left sitting in the silence, basically wondering where on earth the time went. It's a powerful, unsentimental look at the sheer speed and the consuming nature of the provider role. By framing fatherhood as this silent, biological arc of the beast of burden, the author really forces us to look past the greeting card cliches and examine the raw, transactional reality of parenthood. And it leaves us to provocatively wonder, when the territory is finally empty and the physical toll has been paid in full, what was the ultimate value of this silent arc?